Good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever time you're tuning in. This is Humble Beginnings, the Undrafted Podcast with Roushell Hamilton Jr. I'm your host, Roushell Hamilton Jr., and before we get started, I want to take this time out to thank God for the gift, the talent, and the opportunity to do something like this. He is so good to me, and He's my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I'm so thankful to be able to connect with you using this medium, and I want to take this time out to thank you personally for tuning in and supporting me, taking time out of your day, out of your life to hear me and my little slice of the podcast universe. In today's episode of Humble Beginnings, I'll discuss Kirk Cousins signing with the Vikings, Case Keenum signing with the Broncos, the effects of both of these signings on both of these teams and throughout the NFL, and also the effects of this monster contract that Kirk Cousins signed with the Vikings. We'll discuss some other happenings around the NFL. And we've got some I say segment changes, but they're not really segment changes. You know, this podcast is still evolving, and we've still got some changes and tweaks that we're making to it. It's kind of an ever-changing process, and I am absolutely in love with this process that's going on with this podcast. So I'll kind of discuss some of that with you, and then we'll close it out with our Ballin' on a Budget feature. All right, getting right into this Kirk Cousins ordeal. You know, all offseason, we heard about the Cousins to Denver connection. And really, if you're a Broncos fan, it started even a little bit before then. You kind of heard the trickling down of, in the news outlets about Kirk Cousins possibly being interested in Denver and, with Denver's defense and yada, yada, yada. Well, depending on who you asked earlier in the offseason, it almost sounded like Cousins to Denver was basically a done deal, unofficially official. And Denver's quarterback issues are well documented. We all know what happened there. Denver's quarterback play was trash last year, to be bluntly honest. Denver was second in turnovers to only the Cleveland Browns last year. Now, going to Kirk Cousins, he completed 64% of his passes. He threw for over 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns to 13 interceptions, and he's only 29 years old. Kirk Cousins has thrown for over 4,000 yards the last 3 seasons. So you can see why he was a highly, highly coveted quarterback in this free agent class. Quarterbacks with Kirk Cousins kinds of numbers don't come available by free agency very often. It's not very often that teams let guys with these kinds of stats walk out of the facility with nothing in return. It took a team like Washington to make a boneheaded move with this dude, to make a series of boneheaded moves with this dude, to even set this entire thing in motion. He was already going to come with a sky-high price. Quarterbacks in the NFL, well, let me rephrase that. Good to great quarterbacks in the NFL are rare, extremely rare. And Cousins just signed a contract worth $86 million, fully guaranteed, over the course of 3 years. Now, this contract right here, it's got to have the other 31 NFL owners hot as fish grease, because the NFL is a copycat league, and this is the first fully guaranteed contract in NFL history. The way NFL contracts are structured, they're structured basically so the team can take care of the team. They'll guarantee you so much money, but the team and the organization is always going to take care of the team. We've never seen an NFL team fully guarantee every single dollar in an NFL contract to an NFL player. Now, we all know the NFL is a copycat league, and, guys who put up major numbers consistently like Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan, who are both looking at extensions, they got to be looking at this and licking their chops, because Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl. Depending on who you ask in the league, he's the best quarterback in the league. Some people consider him the best quarterback of all time. I personally don't like to get into GOAT conversations because there's so many different variables. Matty Ice puts up big numbers consistently, and he should have won Super Bowl 51, but we all know what happened there. Even Tom Brady might even be looking at this one and, with a side eye and kind of looking at like, because Tom Brady just watched Jimmy G get $27.5 million from San Francisco. And I read somewhere that Tom Brady's only making $15 million only. Like, that's just some scraps under the table or something. This Cousins contract is one that won't even affect just the quarterbacks. This is a deal where every single NFL player at every position on the field is looking at it, and they're looking at it with the googly eyes, because NFL players have been waiting for a contract like this for a long time. Agents especially are drooling at the possibilities that this contract just opened up. Greg Jennings on Fox Sports said on Undisputed a week or so ago that this is a contract players have been fighting years for. And don't be surprised if this one contract causes friction somehow, some way with the upcoming CBA in 2020. Now, I don't know how that works because I don't know the intangibles of NFL contracts and things like that. As far as the CBA, they may not even affect each other. But this is the NFL we're talking about. So I would not be surprised to see this come up some way, somehow at that time. And, speaking of 2020 and the CBA, that around that time, the NFL is going to be at a crossroads because not only do they have the CBA that's coming up in 2020, but ESPN, their contract for Monday Night Football and other NFL-related games, their contract runs out in 2021. And the NFL and the ESPN are kind of at odds with each other right now. ESPN is not happy with the Monday Night Football matchups that they basically have been handed the last few years, specifically the last 2 years. Their play-by-play guy, Sean McDonough, he's been replaced with Joe Tessitore from one of the college broadcasts. And, Sean McDonough did a radio interview the other day, and his comments were pretty surprising in this interview. He made note that ESPN has paid the NFL $2 billion for broadcast rights for Monday Night Football and NFL playoff games. And Monday night matchups were not very competitive. They were not compelling like they used to be. Now, McDonough's comments were surprising because he came out and said he was not having fun broadcasting Monday Night Football telecast. And that's extremely interesting to hear because Monday Night Football is one of the marquee jobs in broadcasting, especially if you're a play-by-play guy or a color analyst. There's no better job that you can have almost unless you're talking about Sunday Night Football over on NBC. But, when McDonough said this, he said he wasn't having a lot of fun with these matchups. ESPN had been basically handed the scraps when it came to NFL matchups the last few years. And if you really look at it, the matchups on Monday Night Football the last few years haven't really been that great. There were several blowouts. And even listening to the announcing, you could tell that McDonough and Coach John Gruden, they were stretching for time. And it's hard for a play-by-play guy to make a game sound interesting that's not interesting at all. So I understood where he was coming from there. What was even more surprising was the fact that ESPN had no comment on his comments. And with a big entity like that, anytime they don't say anything or they don't fix a statement, basically distancing themselves from the quote that's been said, that speaks volumes. It's one of those things where silence speaks volumes, and that tells me that ESPN agrees with Sean McDonough, at least to some degree. Now, the interesting thing with this contract runs out in 2021, and I'm going to step out on a limb, and I'm going to say, look for Monday Night Football to return to ABC in 2021. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I don't believe I am. Here's why. According to Court Gaines and Mike Noodleman of Business Insider, ESPN has lost nearly 13 million subscribers since 2012. Just in a 6-year period, that's a steep drop. At their peak in 2011, ESPN had 100 million subscribers. That number now sits at 87 million and is steadily dropping. Now, you have certain members of the population who like to say, oh, it's politics, ESPN's liberal coverage and da-da-da-da-da is the reason that they're losing so many subscribers. That doesn't have as big of an impact as some people like to say. Now, sure, some people don't like ESPN's coverage when it comes to politics and the player protest and things like that, but it has more to do with people cutting the cord of cable than it does so with politics. You really can't get mad at ESPN for covering some aspect of politics because sports is a microcosm of society. So ESPN, in some ways, they do have an obligation to talk about the political side of sports because there is a political side to sports. Athletes are human, and they have political beliefs just like anyone else. Now, some people may not like to hear what athletes have to say, but that's a completely different discussion for another day. People are moving to mobile devices, phones, tablets, laptops to get their sports coverage. They're not sitting in front of a TV like they used to. Then when you factor in Fox Sports getting in on Thursday Night Football on some of the simulcasts, much like CBS and NBC did last season, well, ESPN, they were already unhappy with the matchups that they were getting for Monday Night Football. Now you have one more network getting into the primetime football coverage pool. So ESPN executives can't be happy about that. Now, the NFL, they like the big broadcast audience. They love those big broadcast numbers. In 2006, when Monday Night Football moved to ESPN, ESPN was already shown in 11 million fewer homes. So that was one of the reasons that made this move so shocking when it happened. And just to give you a sample of broadcast audiences that the NFL loves, Sunday Night Football generally averages a rating number of about 21.5 million viewers. Now, that's kind of a ballpark figure because it varies from game to game, but generally that's what Sunday Night Football on NBC averages. When you look at Monday Night Football ratings on ESPN, they generally average about 11.5 million viewers. So that's a big 10, 11 million viewer drop that the NFL is seeing. Then when you factor in ESPN personnel being unhappy with the way things are going, they're not happy with the matchups that they've been given on Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football games haven't been that competitive in a lot of ways. When you factor all of this in, ESPN executives aren't happy. NFL executives aren't happy with the ratings numbers that they're seeing on ESPN. And and we already know that the NFL likes that big broadcast audience. Well, ABC affords the NFL that big broadcast audience that they covet because it's a broadcast channel. You don't have to pay a subscription fee to get ABC. Now, all is not lost for ESPN when it comes to Monday Night Football, even if this move happens, because ESPN and ABC are both owned by the same company, Disney. Now, Disney operates both units separately. They operate them as separate businesses, but they're under the same umbrella. So even if ABC was to get the major broadcasting rights for Monday Night Football after this contract, all they would really have to do is just simulcast it on ESPN if that's what they really want to do. Now, if I was ABC executives or Disney executives, that's exactly what I would do because you can add to your ratings without really having to do any extra work. So, of course, why would you not do that? Now, with that being said, I also would not be surprised to see this move happen sooner rather than later for the simple fact that they can simulcast Monday Night Football games between ESPN and ABC. They already do it in local markets, just like when the Cowboys play on Monday Night Football, they simulcast the games on Channel 8 here in Dallas. So I would not be surprised to see them do it nationwide if it were to come to that. Now, I could be completely wrong on this entire deal, but when you factor in all of these different variables and factors, I don't believe I am. Anyway, back to this whole Kirk Cousins deal with the Vikings. Now, some Broncos fans were salty that Cousins went somewhere else for more money, but there was also a nugget from Les Shapiro of ESPN who said Cousins was also very concerned about the coaching in Denver. Now, Denver went 5-11 last season, and in all honesty, a few of those wins felt like flukes. The offensive play was bad. It was terrible, yes. The play calling on offense was terrible, yes. The lack of in-game adjustments was frustrating. I remember watching some games where Denver was continually running out of formations that were not working. And it was just like, man, what are y'all doing? Do y'all not know how to adjust? Do you not know how to call audibles? Do you not know how to make in-game adjustments? Stop sticking to the script if you see the script is not working. Why are you continuing to do something that's not working? That's like trying to stick a square peg in a round hole. It doesn't work. Make the adjustments, and let's get this W, and let's get out of here. But that didn't happen. That happened 5 times last year. And as a Broncos fan, it was extremely, extremely frustrating. Now look, I love the Broncos, so I'm willing to give Vance Joseph and his staff another shot because you can't judge a guy off of just 1 year. But there were times where that coaching staff from the top down looked completely lost last season. And when you're watching this team continually run out of a base formation that's not working, like I said earlier, instead of switching it up and making the defense guess, it's almost unbearable to watch because there were times where you could tell the opposing defense knew what Denver was going to do before Denver even did it. And when you're a fan and you're sitting here watching this is frustrating. When the team you love is getting blown out consistently, I think there were 5 or 6 games last year where Denver was blown out by 28 points at least. And this is a squad that was just 2 years removed from having one of the best defenses in history and still have a pretty good defense, but it's the offense that was dropping the ball. So I get the concern from Kirk Cousins from the outside looking in. I really do. And in a lot of ways, I agree with Kirk Cousins. If I was a free agent, I would be concerned about that as well. Vance Joseph is in a prove-it year. He's got to win this year. Even if Denver doesn't get to the Super Bowl, which 9 times out of 10 they won't, If Denver doesn't even get to the playoffs, if Denver goes 11-5, 10-6, or 12-4, gets to the first round of the playoffs and gets knocked out, that's a successful year after what they did last year. I wouldn't be mad at that at all. So one thing you have to look at when a big-time free agent looks at your coaching staff and he says that's a concern for him, that's a red flag, because it's one thing for a player to look at different variables about an organization and just decide to go nowhere. It's another thing for a player to look at the contract and the money that an organization is offering and going somewhere. Hey, that's business. It happens. But when a big-time free agent or when a player, period, looks at your coaching staff and says that gives him pause, that really kind of makes you wonder, because your coaching staff, I mean, that's your bread and butter of an NFL team. Yeah, the players are the ones out there on the field, but it's the coaching staff that's coaching these guys. So that gives you that should place a red flag. If I'm John Elway, that raises a red flag with me, even though I can't really say it out in public. Well, of course, Denver went on to sign Case Keenum, who had a breakout year last year up in Minnesota. Now, personally, I like the Keenum signing because now the Broncos can fill multiple positions of need, like along the line. They got another defensive back. Now that Talib has gone out to L.A. and Bradley Roby's the number 2 guy, they got their number 3 guy, Tremaine Brock, who signed a 1-year deal worth up to $4 million. Now, on paper, you can call Tremaine Brock the number 3 corner on paper, but the Broncos, they run the nickel defense, 60% of the time. So even as a number 3 in Denver, you're still considered a starter. You're playing like a starter anyway, because Bradley Roby, that's how he moved up to where he's at now. Bradley Roby was still locking down some of the best receivers in the game, even though he was just, quote unquote, a number 3 DB. So basically, as a number 3 in Denver, you're a starter. Denver needs another wide receiver. They got to see if Carlos Henderson, if the light can come on there. They got to focus on the D-line, which is a higher priority now after Adam Gotsis was arrested on a rape allegation from 2013, unfortunately. So we don't know what's going to happen there. So it remains to be seen what happens with Denver's D-line. Derek Wolf's coming off the neck injury from last season. They also have to fill a linebacker spot with Corey Nelson going out to Philly. So there's a lot of different holes on this squad that needs to be filled. And if they would have signed Kirk Cousins with the kind of money that Kirk Cousins got, Denver would have had to handicap so much of their team that it would have set them back a few years. Case Keenum signs 2 years, worth up to $36 million. I know the first year he's guaranteed $18 million. So even though it's just only $18 million compared to paying a guy $28 million, that does a lot as far as flexibility for Denver moving forward. Von Miller is my, now Von Miller is my dude. Like, I love Von Miller, not only for his production on the field, but Von Miller just as a person. He's a fun guy. He likes to laugh all the time. He's a goofball, kind of like me. Like, I love joking around. When I was coming up as a kid, I was a class clown, and I could tell Von Miller is that kind of guy. But he's a team player now. He just restructured his contract to give Denver more flexibility to be able to sign free agents and draft picks and things like that. The Broncos converted $16 million of Miller's $18.5 million base salary into a signing bonus. Now, with this move, that creates an additional $12.3 million in cap space that Denver has to work with. With this move, Von's salary cap hit is now at $10.1 million as opposed to $22.5 million before the restructure. So the Broncos are not done in free agency. They haven't done a whole lot, but here's the thing with free agency. Free agency is not won by going out and signing all the biggest names at the positions. Free agency is won by signing guys who fit what you do perfectly and can really help your team move forward. So even if it's I'm not going to say a low priority signing, but even if it's one of those signings that's kind of under the radar, if he fits the mold and he's a guy that is going to be like a diamond in the rough, which the Broncos are really good at finding, if it's one of those signings, you won free agency. Moving on to some other NFL talk. Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford is an interesting guy. Sam Bradford is the Jeff Fisher of NFL quarterbacks. In all honesty, when I come back in my next life, I want to come back as this dude. And in this current life, I want this dude's agent. Sam Bradford signed with the Cardinals for 1 year at $20 million max, $15 million guaranteed. Now, this dude right here has robbed multiple NFL teams. They need to call the cops on this guy because this dude is robbing NFL teams. Since his rookie year, Sam Bradford has made $134 million. $134 million since his rookie year. Sam Bradford's numbers. He's 34, 45, and 1 in his NFL career. Never even sniffed the playoffs. He's finished 16 games in a season one time in his career, which is his rookie year. Ravens safety Eric Weddle said on Twitter that Sam Bradford has been paid more for nothing than anyone in NFL history. And to be honest, it's really hard to disagree with that. And I'm not dissing Sam Bradford at all because I respect any guy who can make it to the NFL. I respect you because the NFL is hard. It's hard getting through college football. Football is a hard sport. It's a physical sport. It demands a lot out of you. In some ways, it demands a lot out of your family. So, in all honesty, I'm not dissing Sam Bradford as a person. So from one quarterback who hasn't done a whole lot, we'll move to another quarterback who has done a whole lot. And this dude right here, this is my dude. Drew Brees is my guy because not only is Drew Brees my dude as a quarterback, I had him in my fantasy. I had him on my fantasy squad last year, and he got me a lot of points. I didn't win it, but he got me a lot of points individually. Drew Brees put the city of New Orleans on his back in 2006, basically. And we all know what happened with New Orleans in 2006. They were still recovering from Hurricane Katrina. Drew Brees arrives in town, puts the city on his back, has remained loyal to the city, does a lot of charity for the city of New Orleans, just does a lot of great things for that city and for that area and for the team. Drew Brees just signed a 2-year deal worth a max of $50 million, and that it'll pay him $27 million guaranteed next season. In all honesty, this is going to sound crazy, but it's the truth. Drew Brees actually gave New Orleans a discount on his contract because he could have went somewhere else and pushed for upwards of $30 million or more, and he would have easily gotten it because I would have gladly taken him in Denver. Now, with all that being said, I'm a Broncos fan, but I will say this. New Orleans, please get this dude another Super Bowl because Drew Brees deserves another ring. Now, let me clarify this. I do not want this ring to come at the expense of the Denver Broncos. So if the Broncos get knocked out in the playoffs and New Orleans is still in it, by all means, go New Orleans, go Saints. Now, I was pulling for them last season, and when I saw that play that Case Keenum threw to Stephon Diggs on that out route or whatever that was, when Stephon catches the ball, the safety missed him, that really kind of hurt my feelings because I was pulling for New Orleans specifically for Drew Brees. Like, I love this dude. And, Drew Brees is my favorite quarterback in the game right now. Now, it's funny that, we talk about Drew Brees in New Orleans. It's funny how he even got to New Orleans. I ain't going to say it's funny. It's a coincidence because I remember in the 2005 season when he was in San Diego, they were playing the Chargers. The Chargers were playing the Broncos. And how I remember this game, I was still working at Pizza Hut. I was working my way through college. And I remember the Chargers were backed up inside their own end zone or close to their own end zone. And I remember John Lynch came off the edge and he smashed Drew Brees on a sack fumble. And, at first I was hyped because it was like, okay, yeah, of course that's my guy. We just, beating the Chargers because I hate the Chargers. Like, I absolutely hate the Chargers. And, my dudes were on their way to a W, so I'm hyped. And when I saw Drew Brees get hurt, I just figured, just the normal shoulder injury, no big deal. But, then, he had the shoulder surgery. San Diego let him go. Then he winds up in New Orleans. He puts the city of New Orleans on his back. He did a lot for him, helping them to recover from Hurricane Katrina. Then when New Orleans got the Super Bowl back in 2009, I was ecstatic for Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees is truly one of the good guys in the NFL. So I want to see this dude cap off his Hall of Fame career with at least another ring. Like I said, as long as it doesn't come at the expense of the Broncos. Now, if he plays the Broncos in the Super Bowl, sorry, Drew, you're going to have to take that L, bruh. Moving on to our next segment. This is going to be called the Cheat Meal Chronicles. What you gonna eat? Dun, 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 something healthy? Hell no. And what this is, now, last week I did the review on Serious Pizza, and I guess I didn't do a good job of explaining what I was doing with this segment. Cheat Meal Chronicles is basically I made some lifestyle changes. This kind of comes from a personal. This kind of comes from a personal place. And I used to eat bad. I used to eat like garbage. And when I tell you I was a garbage disposal, I mean I truly, I truly was, because I was eating up a little bit of everything. I mean, fast food. If it was cheap food like Hot Pockets and those little pizzas and stuff that you get at the store, like I was eating that trash. I was eating, cookies and cakes, pies, all that. I was just eating super unhealthy. And man, to be honest with you, my body showed it, because man, I was I'm not gonna say severely overweight, but I was overweight and I looked bad and I felt even worse. So what I did is I had to change up my lifestyle. I don't call what I do a diet, because it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. If you look at it as a diet, you're more than likely gonna fail, because the word diet attaches so many restrictions and everything to what you can and can't eat that, if you or your body don't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to stick with it very long. So I made some lifestyle changes. I cut out a lot of sugar. I cut out a lot of carbohydrates, especially the simple carbs, the starches and all the gunk. And I don't have time to discuss with you all the changes that I made. So I changed the way I eat. I eat a lot of lean protein and a lot of vegetables. I have carbs and things like that, but it's definitely not the rate of carbs that I eat. So what I do is I do this thing where I do cheat meals. And cheat meals is what I do. It's where I basically indulge on what I want for one meal every other week. And after that meal, I'll have like a dessert, which is like, I might have 2 chocolate chip cookies, or I might have a muffin, something like that. Because I don't have to eat like I used to eat full time. All I have to do is just have just a little bit of it and my body's good. So with Cheat Meal Chronicles, it's basically where I go to a restaurant or I have a meal that I otherwise wouldn't have on a regular basis. And I just enjoy it and I don't feel guilty about it. So last week's Cheat Meal Chronicle was Serious Pizza. Well, we aired it last week, but the actual meal happened 2 weeks ago. This week's Cheat Meal Chronicle is from Rodeo Goat Ice House. And Rodeo Goat's located at 1926 Market Street. It's near downtown Dallas. Now, let me tell you, the burgers here are amazing. Like, amazing. Like, Jesus touched them. Amazing. The atmosphere is super cool. It's got these long tables with bar stool seating. So it's kind of like a diner meets, I guess, like an ice house. But, I mean, I had never been here before. It was really neat. It's a neat experience. It's got a diner-type feel to it. They grind their own meat in-house, which was really unique. You don't see that with a lot of restaurants today. They've got unique burger combos like the Nanny Goat that's got herb goat cheese on it, the Mother Blues with blue cheese, slaw, yuck, caramelized onions and blue cheese crumbles, yuck, all over it. They've got the Sugar Burger with candy bacon, grilled peaches, jalapeno jam, and this last one, like, I love this name. Well, this isn't the last burger on the menu, but this is the last one I'm going to tell you about. This name, I love it. It's called the Hot Bastard. Hotbastard. Hot Bastard. It's got habanero cheddar, marinated Fresno peppers, lettuce, tomato, and onion. Like, I love the name. I didn't have the burger, but I love the name. Now, when I went, it was me and my homeboy Kyle. I had a regular bacon cheeseburger, and he had the same thing. Now, they had this appetizer here. It's called Cheese Fry Surprise. And man, when I tell you it's heaven on a plate, it is heaven on a plate. Like angels dancing on your tongue. Man, it's fries. It's a glorious amount of melted cheddar cheese, bacon, chili, and jalapenos. Sweet Jesus. Man, this cheat meal was lit. Now, if you don't like beef, they'll sub out turkey, chicken, and if you don't eat meat at all, they've got vegetarian options, and they've got quinoa patties as well. Now, let me tell you, this burger was like the perfect combination. Like, the meat patty, it wasn't too thick. The buns, they were buttered and toasted. It got, like I say, it had real cheddar cheese on it, not that Kraft cheese processed stuff. I mean, this was real cheddar cheese. The bacon, it was 4 slices. It was thick. It was perfectly cooked. And, it had tomatoes and onions, lettuce. It comes with pickles, but I don't really eat pickles on my hamburger. But This burger, it was really good. I mean, it was well cooked, it was well seasoned, and like I say, with the burger and that fries, I mean, the prices were pretty reasonable as well. You don't have to go out and blow a hole in your wallet eating at this place. So, like I say, the location was really neat. It was centralized, close to downtown. So if you're close to downtown, if you're just looking for a good hamburger in the DFW area, Rodeo Goat near downtown Dallas, trust me when I say go check it out. Ro knows food, and I would never lead you wrong on food. Check it out. And this is the last segment of the show, and you know how I like to do here on Humble Beginnings, the Undrafted Podcast. I like to see how I can save you a little bit of money while you have a good time. This is the Ballin' on a Budget segment, and this is the segment where I find things that are affordable and enjoyable. So if you're like me and you're looking to save a buck, or if you have a nice little honey that you want to take on a date, but you don't want to spend a lot of money, I got you covered. Well, as you can see, the weather is beautiful outside. This is the best time of the year. Spring, I love spring. Like, I absolutely love spring. If it could be springtime year-round, I would not argue with God one bit. Well, with springtime comes baseball season, and baseball season's right around the corner. Matter of fact, the Rangers season starts up on March 29th. Rangers tickets over here in Arlington, you can get tickets for as low as $11. So they may not be the most ideal seats, but you can't beat going to a Major League Baseball game for $11. Over in Frisco, they've got the Frisco Rough Riders, the minor league baseball team. They play in the Dr. Pepper Stadium. Their tickets go for as low as $9. The Texas Air Hogs over in Grand Prairie, they're part of the American Association, another minor league baseball team here in the DFW area. Their tickets go for as low as $8 a game. You can't beat that. Now, if baseball's not your thing, don't worry. I got you covered. Top Golf over in the Colony. It's $20 an hour for 6 people before 6 p.m. Now, when you talk about Top Golf, think of putt-putt golf on steroids, mix a little bit of bowling in it, and a dash of skee ball, and you got Top Golf. I love Top Golf. And even if you don't go with a group of 6 people, if you're just looking for a date, they have your activities, they have your food, they have your drinks. It's a one-stop shop. You can't beat that. The Fort Worth Zoo. They've got more than 500 species of animals and a variety of indoor and outdoor exhibits. It's $14 for adults, $10 for kids. Kids 2 and under are free, and you cannot beat free. Free is the best price. Did I mention I like things that are free? One thing that I really want to do with the Ballin' on a Budget segment is to go out to some of these activities and some of these events in the DFW area, speak with the personnel and the people involved in it, hopefully get an interview and get some more information for you, and that way we can really get this thing kicking in gear. So like I said earlier, the Undrafted Podcast is steadily evolving. We're tweaking it week by week, making it a little bit better experience for you as time goes on. Well, that's my time for the Humble Beginnings, the Undrafted Podcast. I'm your host, Roushell Hamilton Jr. From the bottom of my heart, I want to take this time out to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for giving me the gifts and the talents to be able to do this, to be able to connect with people on this medium. I want to take this time out to thank you on a personal level for taking time out of your day to spend with me here on this podcast. I know you have a lot of choices when it comes to podcasts and things to listen to. You have a lot of choices when it comes to entertainment, period, and what you do in your spare time. And the fact that you're spending it with me here for this little bit of time means the absolute world to me. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you. Be safe, don't drink and drive, don't text and drive, and God bless.